Today, we're talking about a very important but sometimes uncomfortable topic. What happens when I'm not here? It's very important for our clients to both have everything in order, both financially as well as emotionally. So when you inevitably pass, everything is transitioned smoothly over time. First of all, let's get into it. Let's talk about wills. Wills are obviously a crucial legal document. Can you take us through some of the key considerations when preparing a will for a client and what's involved in the process?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. It's good to be here. And this, as you well know, this is one of my favourite topics. For what is a will? Essentially, a will is a legal document that articulates how you want your assets, your estate, to be distributed upon your death. Important to be able to specify what assets we're talking about, how you want them to be distributed, to whom you want them to be distributed, and whether it wants to be in an estate equalisation to your children or your grandchildren, and to charities or whatever. So wills are important. Interesting statistic, and you've heard me say this many times, but in Australia at the moment, 2025, only 42% of Australians have a current or valid will. So that means more than 1 in 2 people either do not have a will, so when they pass away they're dying intestate, or they have an invalid will. And by the way, marriage, actually, if you had a previous will and then get married, marriage actually cancels out a will, which is a point that not so many people know. So wills are really, really important about determining how, why, and to whom you want your estate and assets to be distributed.
One of the things I often hear you talk about in client meetings, which maybe not everyone completely understands, is testamentary trust. I know I don't have a full understanding of it myself, but I hear you talk about how it can add an extra layer of protection within the family. Did you want to expand and elaborate on that today?
Testamentary trust, Ryan, is actually a clause that's actually written into someone's will. Mostly today, the wills that we see and most of the lawyers that draft up do not include testamentary trust clauses. But why would you want to include it? There are 3 or 4 valid reasons why consideration for those who are listening to our podcast today should be thinking about that. And particularly if the size of the estate is, let's call it $1 million to go to a beneficiary, that is well and truly, in my opinion, a discussion point for the potential of including a testamentary trust. But why would you do that? One is testamentary trust is more about managing assets and the estate post-distribution, rather than it just being handed to the beneficiary and off they go and do what they like with. It does a couple of things. One is it's in a trust structure, which is asset protected, both at commercial law and at family law. Secondly, there are opportunities to be able to use a broader range of beneficiaries, including infants, at normal marginal tax rates. And so for parents or grandparents, there's the ability to utilise correctly and legally their own children for taxation distribution purposes as well. And thirdly is that a trust structure here in Australia goes for up to 80 years. And so it can be a way of protecting assets intergenerationally, and be able to bring different reasons for distributions at different times into that as well. So we strongly encourage people to have conversations with their estate lawyer around the benefits of inclusion of a testamentary trust in their will document.
It sounds like something that obviously can provide both really strong financial benefits or also emotional benefits over time if it's planned for correctly. Moving on to powers of attorney, why would someone put in a power of attorney in place, and what power does that give?
I think most people in Australia have no idea about powers of attorney. They hear about it. What does it mean? Am I signing off all my legal rights? In a simple sense, it means someone can step into your shoes and do what you do at law. And there are a number of different powers of attorney. Let me just quickly go through some of those. The most common one is what we call enduring or a financial power of attorney. So that normally sits within a family structure, and it means that somebody that is granted that power can step into the shoes of that person and sign legal documents, do transactions, complete a wide range of areas as if the person themselves were actually being able to do that. And there's a number of reasons why that might well happen. Someone's overseas, someone's medically ill or disabled, or temporarily legally incapacitated. There's a number of reasons why an enduring or financial power of attorney is important. Typically, it's for spouses and maybe children that would step up as secondary powers of attorney on behalf of a family member. There is general or specific powers of attorney. Ryan, I grant to you, can you sign this property document for me? I'm going to be out travelling overseas, but I need you to be able to sign that. You can do that. Here's the specifics of what that is, and you're granted to be able to do that on that particular care. Or you've got a time frame. You've got access to this for the next 6 weeks, and at the end of that power expires. And the last one is a medical power of attorney, which generally means the ability to make life care decisions and or to turn the machine off. Not so many people in Australia have those medical power of attorney. Interestingly enough, the conversation that I've had with my own wife about that brought up some emotions around why we should or should not be considering medical powers of attorney. Important to have these conversations with your estate planning solicitor.
That's a really important consideration for everyone. If we're thinking about potentially younger demographics, what's the role that maybe potentially insurance or superannuation can play in potentially planning for an early death?
Ryan, life insurance, either outside or included in superannuation, can play a really important role, particularly for families with younger children. It provides that financial gap between the dollars that are required if someone should pass away early or prematurely as well. And so the ability of having conversations, to be able to say, what sort of level of insurance do I need? What is that going to do? It helps maybe to pay off or reduce down mortgages, provide money for children's school fees, for living expenses, maybe have a non-working spouse if the working spouse passes away. There are a number of reasons where life insurance today, still as important as it has ever been, can provide that financial gap. And the ability to utilising superannuation, the balances of our superannuation accounts are increasing quite dramatically, coupled with superannuation life insurance being added to that as well. And so it's a really important point for people to be considering. Do they have sufficient assets should the worst, through either disability or in this case we're talking about passing on, is there any financial gaps? And insurances can help plug that and give family and financial security for them.
Good points, Peter. It sounds like a really worthwhile consideration for someone that may not have that established asset base in place. If we think about how these conversations come about, they can often be quite hard, very emotional. In your experience, how important is it to communicate these sorts of things within a family unit?
Yeah, I think it's a really emotional thing. We don't want to talk about passing on. We don't want to talk about dying. We don't want to even think about our own parents or grandparents. It is emotional. It's tough. And it's not something we want to do. It's not a normal conversation that we want to engage with. And yet this is part of everyday life, isn't it? And stuff happens. And sometimes bad things do happen to good people, and not at the right time, not when we're expecting it. Too often there has been very little conversation inside a family, even within a husband and wife, even inside life partners. What would they like to do? What would they want to happen, etc. And so for us, we talk about having family succession planning meetings, and you've been part of a number of parts of those sorts of meetings on behalf of our clients as well, where we're drilling down, we're opening up with open-ended questions about what they would want to happen. What's in their hearts and minds about if the worst should happen tomorrow, what would they like to happen? And then look at their affairs to see what would happen if something happened yesterday, and see where there's gaps to fix up in that. Having open and honest conversations inside a family, really, really critically important. And we would encourage people to start or have those sorts of conversations. And equally, come and chat to us, and we're happy to start and give them some guidelines on that as well.
Peter, for the viewers, what sort of questions should they be considering as they're thinking through their own affairs?
Yeah, it's a good one, Ryan. As I mentioned before, we don't get excited about getting our wills done. We get excited about the footy, but not necessarily about our own estate planning conversation. And I saw this cartoon recently and I thought, gee, that summarises it really, really well. Ryan, there's a couple of things I probably want our viewers to consider. Well, what's their own circumstances? Are their own affairs, are they in a mess like this guy? Unsorted, unplanned, a mess that's being left for someone else to sort out from an estate financial point of view. And as the caption says, one day, son, all this will be yours. Are they burdening their own children with a mess that you've left behind because you never got round to discussing it, never got round to talking about what's important to you? In my own situation, we recently, with the encouragement of one of our kids, we sorted out a whole heap of stuff. We've moved, we've got some excess material, and we've had almost a garage clean out over the Christmas, New Year period of time. And equally, had another conversation with one of my other children about some of the important areas that are important to me, things like some family history documentation and travels diaries and some photographs, etc. Have these conversations, and he's taken on board to be the next gen person to carry some of that, the custodian. Those sorts of conversations are really important. Wrapping up, Ryan, there's lots of points in here around what would happen if I'm not here tomorrow. Seek advice. Have a conversation with your family. Start to get your affairs in order the way you want it to be. Plan as if something would happen tomorrow, and then plan to live to 100.
Thank you, Peter. Insightful as always. And for everyone at home, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Arrow Insights. If there's any information in here that you wanted more detail on, please feel free to get in contact with your Arrow advisor.